I don't like. It's not a big one.
Now we gotta think of one. Oh, sorry.
All right, two things that you picked up is you picked up speech planner. We need to. You picked up a speech planner. There are plenty of extra speech planners because you very well might want to have a second one. Speech planner that you have, you are going to turn into me on October the 15th. That's not next Monday, that's the Monday after. This is basically like your outline. We're going to go over some stuff with it. This is basically your outline for what your speech is going to be. So if you have content on your speech planner that you want to use while you're up at the podium giving your speech, you would want to have 2 copies of it. Now, if 2 copies means you want to take a picture of it with your phone, print it out later, if that means you have the ability to photocopy it, scan it at home, you can do that. But for a lot of you, it might be taking a second sheet of paper, having 2 copies and time to play with. But the speech planner that you have, that's ultimately going to get turned into me, and I'll talk about what should be going in for resolution claim, what's the difference between those 2 things, and all that kind of stuff. You also have your rubric. I made a mistake. I said 75 points to you. I was thinking about a different speech. The speech that you're going to be doing is a 100-point speech. So, hey, it's a nice, more even round number. There you go. The rubric is yours. You are not giving the rubric to me. I'll make more copies when we do so. So when we go over the rubric specifically and I put some notes on the board, I write them down too, just to make sure you don't forget about some stuff that would be going on the rubric and all that. For Friday, you know about your article analysis. You're going to submit that to turnedin.com. Most of you still need to link up your account with the class. I would do that before Friday night so that if you do run into any issues or problems, you can take care of it. Friday night, I'm going to be on the turnpike, so you shoot me a remind at 9 o'clock. I won't be responding to you, so good luck.
Where are you going?
Far, far away.
Where? Come on. Spell the baby.
Harrisburg. It's not that far. By 9 o'clock, I should be there, but I just won't be looking at the phone or anything like that. We're going to go visit the in-laws. So that we are clear about this, and I'll certainly say this to you multiple times, on September, on Monday, October the 15th, and tomorrow or Friday, we'll determine speech dates. But whether your speech is Monday, October the 15th, or your speech ends up being Monday, October the 22nd, everyone is giving me a speech planner on the 15th. So by by 2 Mondays, you should know what the content, the main thing of your speech is going to be. Also, everyone is going to give me a WCP, which means your works cited page. So the sources that are going into your speech, you would print out a works cited page from Noodlebib and give that to me. The bare minimum is everyone will have at least 2 sources. My guess is that most people will probably be sitting around 4 or 5. Maybe some will go more, maybe some will only have 2. I'm thinking most people probably have around 4 or 5 sources. If you look up a source, you don't use it, it doesn't go on the works cited page, but by all means it does go into your Noodlebib project. Because if it's a source that you consult, that you look at, that you consider, you'd want to put that into Noodlebib. But you're only giving me the sources that would actually be making it into the speech. Keep in mind, sources don't only have to be online. You can certainly use print sources. You might have some stuff that gets useful, like within a textbook. You might end up doing an interview with somebody, or there's a newspaper article, physical copy down the library to take a look at. Certainly, it doesn't just have to be online stuff. So we're going to get into details about speech planner and your rubric and all that stuff. But any questions about like at least what's due, assignments, all that kind of whatnot. All right.
What are you reading? Catch a Rye?
Good job.
No,
Catch.
it says adolescence. I was looking at mental health.
We were talking about me. All right, so to clarify a couple things. Name, I think you know what it is that you'll be using for that, hopefully. resolution. You and whoever your debate partner are would be writing down the same thing for resolution. So, Addie, who are you debating again? You and Mike, right?
Tyler.
Or Tyler, okay. So both Addie and Tyler, you would have the same thing written for your resolution, whether you're affirmative or negative. You want to make sure that you and your, I'm not going to say partner, I guess opponent, agree upon the resolution. Maybe there's a word that you want to change, tweak, or something, to the thing that's on the board, or not on the board, but on the paper that you got yesterday. Don't write the number. Don't go number 8, number 6. But write out what that statement is, what the resolution. The claim, this will be varying now from person to person, because your claim will either be written in the affirmative, or you'll be writing it in the negative where you would be disagreeing. So resolution, same for both speakers. Your claim, this is going to vary between the two of you, with one being affirmative, one ultimately being negative. All right. Mentioned to you yesterday that you were going to do a 6-minute speech. So with the way the breakdown is going to go, you have your 1-minute introduction, you have your 3-minute body, and then 2-minute closing that we'll take a look at here in a little bit. When it comes to the information that you're putting here, I just put little bullet points, so there is no need for complete sentences. You're just going to give me bullet points as to what it is that you are trying to include. If you're using sources, make sure you identify who those sources would be, so that when you're reading from here, using it to create your argument, you know what sources you are using. You could certainly include some quotes, but I'm not worried about complete sentences. I'm not looking for paragraphs or anything like that. But within that opening minute, that first minute, you're just going to be introducing your main issue, your main topic. You'll be identifying what your topics will be, what your 3 main points will be, possibly up to 3, but you're not going to be getting into any of those details quite yet. After you go, you affirmative. So Abby will be going first, then negative will come up, you'll do your 1 minute. One thing to double check before you begin your research is make sure you know who is affirmative and who is negative. Tyler, I have her as being affirmative. And you're doing the empathy one, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Now, I still have her as negative view, or her as affirmative view as negative. When it comes to your body of your argument, you have to have at least 2 main subtopics that you're looking at. So here you'll provide your support, your reasoning, all that kind of stuff. Down here, main idea number 3, I put as being optional. It is up to you, and it might be based on the amount of content that you get. Can you cover 3 main points in 3 minutes? If you know that you have enough information and the way that you speak and all that, it's going to take you a minute 20, a minute 25 to cover 1 main topic, there's no point in trying to fit in that 3rd main idea, within 20 seconds or something along those lines. As long as you have at least 2 main points to your argument, you're okay so far as having enough content. It's not that you lose points if you only have 2. If you know that you're only going to spend about a minute on each of those main points, then certainly I think you want to be able to go up to 3. Mike, I think it was you yesterday or a couple days ago asking about like time and all that stuff. So far as like how much do I need to use all of the minute or the 3 minutes for the opening? My expectation would be that you are doing at least 45 seconds for your introduction. So as long as you hit 45 seconds, there's not going to be any automatic point deduction that would be taking place. If you don't hit 45 seconds, for every 10 seconds that you're falling short, there would be then a point taken away. So if you speak for 41, I take off 1 point from your opening, from your introduction. If you were at like 33 seconds, since you're now in your 2nd group of 10 seconds, 2 points would go away. I don't think that's going to be a problem though for that opening minute. for the body part, the expectation would be that you hit at least, you got it, 2.5 minutes. I would want you to at least be hitting. So if Jeremy speaks for 2 minutes, 35 seconds, you're perfectly fine. Doesn't mean that you're going to be getting necessarily full credit. You know, maybe you came up short somewhere within the argument, but time wouldn't end up being an issue. And then down here for the final 2 minutes, as long as you're getting up to 1:30, you would be all right. There we go. So any questions on the time?
No, sir.
For your last 2 minutes, the hope is that you're going to have a rebuttal and then you'll do your conclusion. So after having listened to your opponent, you have a counter argument. When it comes to planning out your rebuttal, what could be an issue with giving it to me ahead of time? Like you're going to turn in your speech planner before you end up giving your speech. You might not know yet, you're not going to know what your opponent is going to say. What I would want you to put down for a rebuttal, though, would be like an expected counter-argument. What do you think the opponent is going to say? Assuming that he takes the negative approach, what does Addie think Tyler's viewpoint is going to be? So it is conceivable that what Billy ends up putting down for the rebuttal, you don't address because your opponent took a different route. I understand that. But I at least want you to be aware of what would be an expected argument, so that you're going into it with at least some kind of ideas. Billy?
2 questions. So we're gonna get these back, right? After we
So while you're going to turn them in on the 15th,
right,
I keep them.
right.
So when you are up there speaking, I'm going to follow along with
So
it.
we have to write 2 of these.
So if you want, there's an extra copy there. Some people will take a quick picture of it and they'll have their phone. The only problem with that, at least if your eyesight's anything like mine, it's an ugly face to be making when you're up there speaking. So you can, but it gets to be a little messy. So yeah, I think writing out 2 copies would be the best way to do it. But I'm definitely going to have one in front of me so that when you and whoever your opponent is, both of them will be there. So I'm kind of following along to make sure your argument's okay. All right. And the extras that I have, they'll be hanging over there behind Corey. So anytime, later on this week, next week, you go over and grab a second one, no problems. If you go over and grab one, there's not any left, let me know. We'll print them out, but there should be plenty. Also, I do have extra copy. I put one on Google Classroom, so you got a couple more emails from me today in your student Gmail, because you only got like 100 of them so far. But this and the rubric are both in there. That if you need a copy of, you can do that. If you wanted to, handwrite this one. Maybe you decide you want to open this in Google Docs and type in it because it would be easier for you to read or highlight colors or stuff like that. You could certainly do that. Yeah. Did you ask me both questions? Remember you said 2.
My other question was gonna have to do with this, but
Okay.
you're
All right. So counter argument, I understand it's going to be kind of an anticipated argument because you don't know for sure what that other person is going to say quite yet. If you had 3 main points you were hoping to cover, you ran out of time for that 3rd main point within that middle 3 minutes, you could still make reference to it here before moving into the rebuttal. So it's not that you have to spend 45 seconds on rebuttal, 45 seconds on conclusion, or a minute, but it's just you have those last 2 minutes to kind of finalize what your overall argument would be. The last part then, down here at the bottom on the backside, you see where it talks about examples of eloquence. You have to have at least 3 unique examples of eloquence within your speech. By 3 unique, I mean you can't go, I'll use alliteration and a metaphor. That's only 2. Or, well, you could have repetition as long as you tell me what those 2 different types of repetition would be. But you have to have at least 1 scheme, 1 trope. So one of them is figurative language-esque, at least one of them is syntax. If you want to go 2 scheme and 1 trope, and Michael goes 2 trope and 1 scheme, I'm fine with that. What you would do, though, is in here, let me know what you're going with. So you're not going to write Jeremy repetition, but maybe you go with anaphora, and then you could give me what is your example going to be in the speech. So what is the phrase that you're going to repeat, over and over and over again? Or what is the metaphor that you're ultimately going to make? So you would just kind of put in quotes what it is that you are going to say. If Jeremy puts down his 3 examples of eloquence, and you give me your works cited page, and you have your speech planner all complete and everything, you get a 20 out of 20 before you actually give the speech. So in some ways, the speech assignment's 120 points. If Jeremy puts down his 3 examples of eloquence, but he doesn't use them within the speech, you'll get credit for having this complete, but you're not going to get the points for using the eloquence in the speech if you don't actually say it. So one reason to definitely use a speech planner might be to remind yourself, what was that analogy I was going to make? What's the allusion? What's the alliteration? Because those are part of the speech that you're going to do. I think a lot of you would naturally start to use some eloquence anyway, so once you start kind of planning out how that speech would go, you can decide, yeah, I was going to use antiposis or antimetabole or assonance, allusion, whatever the case may be. So this and the works cited page get turned into me. Those things will be 20 points. That's a separate grade from the speech rubric that you have. So this is kind of be like a homework assignment for Monday the 15th, and then your speech grade would go in on whatever day you end up giving for your speech. Okay? So think of it like a brainstorm and outline. But again, you're not going to type up a speech, print it out, and then bring it up here. Okay? Mike, everything okay? Rubric, I don't want to bore you going over what every little thing here that we mean is, but I do think it'd be a good idea to kind of keep mind of some things here. For your introduction, you can see your introduction is 10 points, so you can get the 10 points as long as you speak for at least 45 seconds. I do want you to have some kind of interest catcher, attention grabber, hook, whatever it is that you want to call it. The one thing that I would stay away from, what do I not want you to begin your speech with? Don't ask a question. Pet peeve number 1. No questions. We can do that. What could you do to start off? You could go with a quote.
Thank you all for coming.
Tyler, don't start your speech off with a question. Guys, we said so. If you do a famous quote, what could it be? I don't mean like a quote, but I'm thinking of eloquence. It could be an example of allusion. Now, if you use a quote, you can as long as we know who the person is. You could do a Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, Sidney Crosby. Even I guess we would know who that person is. I don't know if it'd be the best allusion to make, but that you could use that as a quote. If you were to quote Martin Luther King Jr., and your example from Martin Luther King Jr. has repetition and anaphora, because we know there's a bunch, that's not going to count. You can't use someone else's words to be your figurative language or your syntax. You can use them as an allusion because you would be making it, but I don't want you to double dip on any kind of topic where this is an allusion and it's a metaphor, and oh, by the way, there's some alliteration. I'm done. Thank you very much. That was the best speech I ever did in 2 seconds. So you could do a quote on school in some way. All of you have personal experience with school, so you could even kind of start off with a personal anecdote or some kind of little story that would be relevant to what it is that we're trying to communicate. So you could go quote, only possibilities that you would certainly have, but those would probably be the most common ones. It should be clear as to what your claim is going to be, so there should be no confusion. Are you affirmative or negative? Make sure that when you're mentioning your claim, you also introduce the subtopics. In the introduction, the most common way that people miss out on points is they don't let us know what those subtopics are going to be. So main idea number 1, number 2 on this, that should be making its way into your opening so that in that first minute, we know exactly then what Jared's going to be talking about later on when he gets into the whole body system.
Fair enough.
Abby, do I need to translate something for you?
I just don't know what the first word says.
Introduce the subtopics. Not today, I'm not apparently.
Wait, transfer to what?
You know how you translate?
You can click on a word and
It'll recognize my handwriting.
what?
It recognizes my handwriting. Why can't you recognize my handwriting? You're in the back. It's understandable. Body of speech. For your argument, the expectation would be that you use at least 2 of these. So you have statistics, testimonies, stories, example, research studies. That you would have at least 2 of these used throughout the course of your speech as evidence. All right. Now you could certainly add some other stuff, but we're looking here for logos, so we would want to have at least a couple of these things being used. People tend to lose points in the opening if they don't include their subtopics. In the body of the speech, people tend to lose points when they don't make reference to their sources. You have to. Everyone has to make reference to at least 2 sources. Doesn't mean you have to reference every single source that you use. You could have 5 sources on your works cited page. As long as you reference at least 2 of them, you're okay. If you only use 2 sources, then you'll have to reference both of them. What we mean by referencing would be you're going to introduce it, so that could be something along the lines of according to, and then you mentioning the article or the poll. You might have something where you say, in a recent article published, in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, but you're introducing what the source would be. I don't need you to go, after you read a quote, parenthesis, flourish, page 12, but just go, according to a Huffington Post article published, last November, it was stated that you've introduced what your source would be.
Like, would Huffington Post be a credible source?
Just about any source that you use is going to have some element of bias to it. And this could be stuff that's showing up, within the databases that we were looking at. I don't have a problem with you using Fox News, Huffington Post, USA Today. They're all like Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has political bias to it. So there's always going to be some kind of bias. The good news is probably that at least with the topics that we're looking at, probably not as much bias as if we were doing something along the lines of U.S. government should not regulate personal well-being, or dealing with, a healthcare reform kind of thing. But yes, you could use Huffington Post, you can use USA Today. The main checklist was, is there like a parent organization like a Huffington Post? I don't mean parents as in parents of kids at school. Do you have like a parent organization, a publisher? Do you have a title for your article? Do you have an author? If you have those 3 things, we're probably going to be okay. If you are, looking at a website, AmericanPublicSchoolsAreCrappy.com, there's definitely going to be some bias that's taking place. How credible is that information going to be? If you come across something that you go, I don't know if this sounds legitimate or not, I would try to cross-reference it. Can you get another source that mentions it somewhere? If you can, then you're probably going to be okay. But if you go, according to a recent Huffington Post publication, I'm not going to throw up my hands in the back and be like, well, that one doesn't count. If you went, according to Mr. Kane's personal blog, teachers are wonderful, that one's not necessarily going to be the most credible source if you're dealing with a personal blog. But again, if you find something on a blog somewhere, or on like a secondary source, a secondary website, cross-reference it, see if you can get that information to kind of like fact check, you can still be okay with it.
So, like, if we do get into political debates, are you allowed to use, like, far right or far left sources?
As long as you, I mean, yes, you can.
But there's just not enough, like,
well,
those kind of...
It's what tends to happen if you're dealing with something with politics. It's not that the information and the source is not correct, assuming we're not dealing with like fake news and all that kind of stuff. It's not that the information itself being presented is not credible, but it's, okay, how is that being interpreted? And so if you do something that is like statistic based, it can be interpreted one way. It can also be interpreted in another way. So it's just making sure that you're aware of what that bias is, and you being prepared for someone to call you out on it, so that you can objectively try to, do the whole counter argument. But no, we're not going to go, that's a far right wing or left wing source. That one doesn't count. No, you can use it, but just be ready to back it up.
Like ours was gonna be really cool.
For the topic that you're doing. So when it comes to the rebuttal, be aware that the opponent might, kind of try to discredit the source material a little bit. Or if you think that your sources could be up for criticism, make sure you have something else that will further kind of support it and back it up. And also, don't forget, especially because you're dealing with schools, this is something that, whether you consider yourself an expert or not, you've had 11, 12, I guess with kindergarten, some of you are in your 13th year of experience, personal observations. Just make sure you don't fall in the trap of, that anecdotal logical fallacy where just because this one situation has happened to you, that's now the norm. My 11th grade English teacher was, one mean son of a gun. That doesn't mean all English teachers are going to like COVID. Get over it. Deal with it.
You should drink a personal blog.
I do see it with the glasses off. Yeah.
Wait, are we singing what it's like?
He'll fill you in. Closing, you have your rebuttal, you restate your claim, you're good to go. For your eloquence, you get 5 points for each one. 5 points 3 different times. So if Jeremy uses alliteration and alliteration and alliteration, he would only be getting 5 points because really only one of those has been used. You could use 3 different unique ones that are scheme, trope, get the full 15. You could potentially have 0 if you don't use the eloquence that you said you were going to when it comes to that speech planner. The speaking techniques down here, traditionally this has not been problematic, and based on what you've done from your SPAR debates, I don't think this is going to be problematic. Intensity gestures doesn't mean, Kobe, you don't have to yell and scream at us and do all this, but it means that you're simply not monotone. Hello everyone. Schools are great. Luke, don't completely pound my podium to bits.
No, I was doing what he did whenever he first.
Eye contact. Hey, as long as you're not reading, your notes, you should be okay with eye contact, vocal presentation, we're able to hear you, and all that kind of stuff. Don't be chewing your gum. Don't be playing with your hair, Megan. Tie it up. It'll help you out.
I tied it up for the last time.
Well, keep doing that. Jess has hers pulled back. She'd be fine.
You see, the issue is I shower in the morning, and by the time I get here, my hair's still wet. So if I put it up, then it messes it up, and then it's gonna be wet.
Deal
Should I
with
just
it.
shave my head for it?
You need to put your hair out.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, honestly, do it.
Although you might keep rubbing for good luck during the course of the speech. That could be a little distracting. Not saying these are the ones that I'm looking out for the most, but traditionally where people kind of shoot themselves in the foot would be forgetting to use their eloquence, forgetting to cite their sources, and within that opening not letting us know what those subtopics in big bold green, Addison, are. Say you didn't introduce your subtopics. -3. You didn't do any referencing of your sources. -10. You did not use any eloquence. -15. Right now, assuming everything else is perfectly fine, you're looking at a 72. Assuming you did everything else perfectly well. But, you lost 28 points, 28%, because you didn't mention your subtopics, you didn't mention your sources, you didn't use the eloquence. Those are correctable things that you can definitely do, so you don't want to get punished for not having the basic stuff. It would be kind of sad if you do get the 72, because everything else was perfect, but you just missed out on that other.
What do you think for what it goes in the videos?
Nope. Because there's not really even official, we're not going to do a vote for it.
Wow.
What
Like
motivates
the
you to do good?
This is about
Yeah,
pride.
what's the point
Do
of-
well, Michael.
Yeah,
Do
well.
well.
Hey, what
People
motivates
say that.
about
what
pride.
motivates you to do well on it?
Stop.
If you can't
Do
win?
good one.
It is.
The
Tyler, you're the last person to be talking about the things like you.
I don't know what you said that's fine.
We should take a vote on it.
It's a public forum debate. Public forum debate, and honestly, you'll still have a feeling of, I won that one, or
Can we switch?
I lost, or I had the better argument. I don't know why they liked that argument better than mine, but it's a public forum debate. The whole issue of public forum debate is that you are trying to educate the audience. So part of the whole argument that's taking place, the whole, the debate, the friction is you're going to better help Josh, Jess, Brooke make a decision about what you agree with, what you disagree with. We'll still, as I said, do questions, and the questions don't count towards your grade. There's nothing on the rubric of questions for it, but we can still ask you questions, and we might do something along the lines of, all right, which argument do you kind of agree with? But it's not going to impact your grade, whatsoever. You could get that 72%, not because you missed all that other stuff, but maybe your argument wasn't quite as tight as it could have been, but people still agree with you. The difficult thing too with this is because all the issues are a little bit more related to one another than like the SPAR debate, which you're doing for fun. This one could have a little bit of bias to it based on your own experiences. It could have some bias based on what you want to do as an adult. And so in some ways it's not going to be fair if you're taking the negative approach to an argument that 22 out of 20 people already agree with. If after the debate 15 people now agree with the affirmative, even though you lost the debate, you still did a good job of bringing 5 people over. We'll do some stuff probably later on, or maybe we do like a pre and a post poll. All those in favor of the resolution now, what is it? And then maybe do one after the debate. But we're not worried about by a vote of 14-6, you are now the winner. You get the heavyweight championship belt to carry around for the rest of the school.
This. It's about pride.
Pride, tradition, excellence.
Just okay,
We could make the pit chain. Miami has the turnover chain. You can get the pit chain if you win and wear this the rest of the day. That'd be fun.
I would not wear that.
Shame on you then. We
Yeah.
don't want you. Shake your head and leave.
What's terrible about it, Tyler?
Everything. Name one good thing.
Any questions about rubric? Any questions about speech planner?
Yeah, name one.
There's so many internship opportunities.
Tomorrow,
So is every other school.
what's up?
No, there's so
Starting tomorrow, you're going to be able to research. So really, you would have 5 days of research with Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday next week. You have off of Monday, Columbus Day, and then remember
Senior
Wednesday's
citizens.
PSATs. So you have those 5 days in here. When everyone comes back on Monday the 15th, I have speech planner and I have printed out works cited page. Those I would expect at the beginning of the class. So if Kofi goes, can I print out my works cited page during lunch and give it to you later in the day? Yes, you can, but you're going to be losing points for that one because it's not on time. So by Monday, second period, you'd have that speech planner and that works cited page for the 15th. Check your calendars. Tomorrow we will pick dates as to when you will be speaking. So make sure you know when you have doctor's appointments, field trips, any of that kind of stuff. You'll be pulling numbers. Remember, your number is not the order in which you're going to be presenting, but it's the order in which you pick the day that you are going to be presenting. So we'll be starting on the 15th, and it would take us 6 days. So it would be the 15th through the 22nd. Yeah. So we would do one debate on the 15th, and we would do 2 debates every other day, and that would give us our 11.
I did that one good thing.